Hi and welcome to the LSEG developer community. Today we're going to be looking at tutorial 3 specifically, looking at get data, the get data function that you can find within the LSEG data library for Python. First of all though, I wanted to quickly go through our developer community. If you were to go on https://developers.lseg.com, you will find this site on which you can find a lot of documentation, a lot of resources that are going to be super useful going forward using the Python library. First of all, you can find a lot of documentation about all of our APIs. They're all going to be here. You can see all APIs there. You can find old ones, such as Icon right here, or newer ones, such as the data library right there. That's going to be renamed real soon, and going all the way to Yieldbook, and then some more. If you're interested in the documentation and maybe even some quick starts, you can find it in there. We also have some articles. Now, these are a bit more full fat than API pages. API pages is basically only there for tutorials, for documentation, and things like that. But in articles, what we're trying to do is that we look at some maybe complex workflows and things as such. Here, for example, we've got one on equity derivatives, and as you can see, it's quite long. So sometimes we have some long articles like this with code that you're completely welcome to copy and paste yourself with inside your code. Or sometimes we have some shorter ones going through easier workflows, and that could be useful for fin coders or just developers using our data and our technology. Going on forward within the developers.lseg.com website, we also have the developer tools. Now, the one that might be most interested for you would be the API Playground. We've got it right here, on which you can look at specific endpoints, and I'm going to speak about that in a second for many of the data platform APIs that we have. And also the upgrading to workspace. I think these are going to be the two developer tools that are going to be most interesting for you where if you're upgrading to workspace from older products. But of course, there's more there. You've got the data catalog and more. We also aggregated all of these resources in use cases that we thought could be useful for you. So if, for example, your use case is very academic or it's very text-based or artificial intelligence-based, commodities-based, or something like this, you can go on the use cases right there and find an amalgamation of all of the resources, the documentation, the API pages, the articles, or maybe even the videos that may be most interesting for you, and they'll be here on the right. You see related articles. You may also have some little tabs to eliminate them some more. We also have events, so these are quite self-explanatory. Videos, again, self-explanatory. And last but definitely not least is the Q&A, where you can find a Stack Overflow-like question and answers forum for any questions that may be technical in nature using LSEG APIs, and they're right there, as you can see. Now, Stack Overflow, for those of you who don't know, is basically this is a question and answers forum that is optimized for technology-related questions. Okay, I spoke about the community online, and I wanted to speak very quickly then about the Python library. I'm not going to be speaking exactly word for word what's written right there. Instead, I'm going to be going a bit faster, and I created with this in mind this tiny little picture because I wanted to explain what the difference was between the data platform and the data library. Okay, we have something called the LSEG data platform, and on this platform we have several APIs. These APIs live in the platform, and you can access these APIs via endpoints. Now, these things here that I'm showing you right there on the left, and then we've got them right here, are all addresses. You can think of them like addresses like one London street, and you can send a request to these addresses, and you'll get a response within this API. So let's say I am using the pricing API inside the LSEG data platform, and I send my request to this address right here in order to do something. What you could be sending could be something like, let's say something like, let's zoom in a bit more actually. It doesn't have to be a database. You don't necessarily have to request for data. So here, for example, I could be sending 2 and 2, and then the endpoints might be returning 4. You see, what's going on here is that I'm not sending a request for data. I'm not sending a request for closed price for LSEG yesterday. Instead, I'm sending some data, and I'd like the endpoints and the server behind the endpoints to do some calculation for me. So you can think of it a bit like a calculator, and we call these services. That's why I would refer to what's going on in the background as a service rather than a fetch request or just a data request. That's just an example of what could happen. Or you could do something different, such as, I don't know, close price, and then it's going to return 40 pounds or something like this. In which case, yes, it would be asking for data from the database. But there's quite an awful lot more going on up there. So here we have our data platform. Pricing, for example, would be pricing API would be an example of a database where you'd be fetching some data, and we have quite a few right there going through search, ESG, news, and this here is IPA, and that would be more of an example of a service. So IPA, you'd be sending data to IPA, and it would be doing some calculation for you and return the results to you. As you can see, I've put 3 dots at the bottom and at the all through these APIs, because there are many endpoints and many APIs that live within the data platform. There isn't just these 6 right there. There's more. This is just here for example's sake. Now, these differ from the LSEG data library for Python. The LSEG data library for Python is a wrapper. It's a library specifically for Python that allows you access to modules and functions that themselves are made to link to these endpoints. Now, that's not strictly true, but you can think of it in this way, because most of the time that's what's happening. What's happening is you have a wrapper, a layer. For example, when you're using the get data function, which we're about to talk about right now, and that function is wrapped so that you can seamlessly request data either from the pricing API, the historical pricing API, the search API. You don't have to know the name of the address. You don't have to know the name of the API, or even the fact that you're using the LSEG data platform. You can, if you want, simply just focus on the LSEG data library for Python, and it's going to sort all of this out for you, even the authentication and more technical pieces. As you can see, the data library for Python is split into 3. We've got these 3 layers: the access layer, the content layer, and the delivery layer. You can think of it in kind of a way to divide yourself from the database itself, the servers where you are asking the data. So with the access layer, you're asking for some pretty rudimentary things, and in a simple way. So you're just using some functions here, get data. Well, you're getting the data, get history, you're getting historical data, things like this. Get headlines would be for news. And then when you're using the content layer, it can get a bit more complicated. For example, here we've got content.ipa. So that's how you can access this IPA API right there. And in this case, you're not asking for data, you're asking for services. It can get a bit more complicated. Last but not least, you got your delivery layer, and I'm going to be going through the delivery layer last. It's not going to be in this video. And here, what you'd be doing is you would actually have to know the name of your endpoints. So you'd have to know that you are pinging this endpoint right there, and you'd have to know how to send your request. So when I showed you 2 and 2 within these curly brackets, you'd have to know that that's how you have to send your data, and it depends on each API. And we have plenty of documentation about all of this on the API Playground, which is why I showed it to you at the very start of this video. And you can go on forward like this with these delivery layer modules and functions. Okay, enough about the metadata and the data model and things like this. If you are interested to learn more, as you can see, there's more written on this notebook that you have access to online on GitHub. But what I'm going to do first is I'm going to be using the LSEG data library. So you can pip install the LSEG data library. As you can see, I've got it here. I'm actually going to remove that and use pip install lseg.data. And you can do this and install your LSEG library right there within your environment. Now notice that here I'm actually using Visual Studio Code, and that's not the codebook that's within Workspace, simply just because I'm using an early release of LSEG data, which is why I've got this little warnings cell that's going to ignore some of the warnings that would otherwise coming up, which would not be coming up on your end once the LSEG data library is released on pip install. But you can install it like with this. Now I'm not going to do it because I've already done it before. And you can import your library like that. Now I've decided to name it LD. I suggest you do the same, but you can name your library as you wish. Okay, that's how you can import the library, install the library, and import it. And now what we can do is that we can authenticate ourselves. Now there's 2 ways to authenticate yourself, as is written right here, with the desktop session and with the platform session. Now, the desktop session requires you to have the Workspace desktop application running on the machine where you are running your code. And the reason for this is that the desktop session is going to use a proxy, which is a little machine, a little piece of machinery in the desktop application, to authenticate yourself to the LSEG services by using the credentials you used to log into the desktop application itself. That's quite useful because it means you don't have to authenticate yourself twice. You don't have to copy and paste your passwords or things like this. That's not, very secure. You can do everything right here, and by default, you can do so with open session. So that's what I've got right there. ld.open session is going to open my session with the desktop application that I've got running. So here I'm opening my session. You can see the name of my session and also the place where it's named. It says name workspace because I've got my workspace application, desktop application running. Now it also works with icon at the moment, and you can go forward with that. I've spoken about the layers just up there, the access and delivery layer, the content layer. So we're going to be using the access layer, and within that layer, we're going to be using the get data function. How do you use the get data function? Use it very simply by using the LD library, ld.getData. That's it. It's quite simple. You're using the getData function inside the LD library, and that getData function uses several arguments. Now, the first one is going to be a universe, so your universe of instruments. Now, here I've got examples of just Vodafone and Apple, but you can have something other than equities, maybe commodities, things as such, and you can have your field name. So here I'm just looking for the close price. Okay, it's giving me the close prices for my two instruments, but you can do some more. So here I've got some very simple close price, but I also have things such as my field names, and I've got my field names right there. I've got quite a few. I've added some more, and you can go on forward like this, and you can add some more parameters. So here, this argument, the parameters argument, is one where you can really dig into your requests, the one you're going to be sending to the data platform. Here, I've got some pretty simple parameters, S date for obviously when you want to start your piece, and end date for when you want to end your time series. And here I've got my two fields. Note that I've got the dates here on the left and my normal close on the right in order to be able to see the date for the data that I'm asking for. However, I might have gone a bit too fast here, because how do you know what parameters you can use? So here up there, I had S date and E date. How did I know that these were the things I could use? How did I know that I could use 2020-01-01? Well, there is a handy tool called the code creator. That's right there. I can show you right here. I've got it open, and on my code creator, I can look for any instruments. Let's go for LSEG.L, why not? And using this, I can go, let's go for some time series data, why not? Something like that, EBIT. And if I was to go to the top right here, I hope it's not too small to see, I can go on parameters and quick functions, and I can click on series. Now you don't have to click on series, right? You can use this tool as you wish and go forward and try and find time series data. So here I'm going to say I'm going to ask for the next 2 or 3, let's say 5 financial periods. Should we go financial periods? Let's go financial quarter. I saw, there you go. Next fiscal quarter. Why not? We can do things like this, and we can change the output that we are looking for with these toggles, and then add that field with all of these peculiarities right there. So here at the bottom left, again, I hope it's not too small. You can see that I have a brand new field that was created here with my universe, which is my LSEG. Now you can open in Codebook, which is an environment where you can code in Python, or copy to clipboard, but I'm just interested in the field. So here what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this, copy it, and then I'm going to paste it right there. So let's go back up. Let's say that I want something new. Let's say a new field. I can go there and paste it there. Now notice what's going on here. I have my field name right there, and I have my parameters here in brackets. Now that's perfectly fine. That would work. However, this would only apply to this field. If you want those parameters to apply to all fields, let's say you have, I had quite a lot, there you go. I had very many fields here, and I don't want to have to add all of the parameters for each field. That'd be quite a lot. What you can do is what we've done right there. You see, I've got my S date there, so that's my first parameter. That is the value for my parameters, so 0. What this means is I'm starting today. My end date 4, so I can put 4 in here. And I can move on forward like this. Let's say that I'm interested in this new parameter that I didn't have in there before. I can put that in here. Notice that it's the key of my dictionary, and it's a string. And in there, I'm going to be inputting the parameter I'm interested in. So let's do something like this, right? And you can go on like this. I mean, I think you understood. However, once it's done, you have to remove it. So here I'm going to remove that, and this is the kind of request that I can send right over. Okay, I'm going to go back because it was a bit cleaner just before. As a matter of fact, I have some examples for you. If I was to scroll down, I've put some, there you go, quick examples of some more complex pieces you can write in there. Yes, some much more complex. As you can see here, I have quite a few fields, and therefore I want to use these parameters in question. And you can see the outputs right there. Okay, moving on forward, you have one last parameter within the getData function called header type, which you can use right there. And what this does is that it renames the headers with the specific field name used within the field argument. Now, why would you do this? Well, because if you have very many fields, some of them could be named the same. Maybe you'd have, for example, here I have a tr.close date. Maybe I'd have a bid.date, and this would give me the bid price, but also the bid date, and it will just show, if I was to scroll back up, date. Now, how do you know which one is which? Now, if you, I know this. I know that if I was to write dot date, it's going to give me date, and it's going to give it to me in the order that I have put in the fields argument right there. However, maybe you have very many fields. Maybe you have some kind of logic that decides the fields for you, so you don't know in advance which one's which. Therefore, what I would advise is maybe using this. So this header underscore type argument, and this right there in order to change it to the name of the field that's right there. Now, you don't have to have just name. There's quite a few you can use here. So what else is there? You've got name and title. So you can do both, or just title, things like this. I would advise playing around with it until you find the unique names that you're interested in, and then you can have some more logic going forward. Okay. Oh, yes, there's something I didn't actually touch on, which is how do you know the name of the fields? So here I've got a field tr.closed, and I've got a few more up there. If I scroll up here, how do I know where to find these fields? Well, I can use the data item browser to do just this. Now, there's already a video out there speaking about the data item browser, but just very quickly here, for the sake of argument, let's go lseg.l again, and I've got that right there. Let's say here, there you go, I've got my ask, and this is the data item code that I'm after. So here I can copy that data item code, which is cf.ask in this specific instance. I could go to the bottom right here, copy the formula, minimize it, and then change that field. I can paste it right there, and I'll have the field that I'm after. This is useful to say the least. However, what we'd be looking for, maybe a more exotic thing, maybe let's go for a bit. Let's see if this comes out. And there you go. You've got your bit mean, and this is a very specific code. So you see it's natural language you can write in this search field. Now there's quite a lot more you can do. Top right, you can change the data type that you want. You can even filter some more on the left. But there's another video about this if you want to dig a bit deeper. That's what the data item browser does, and that's what it's for and how useful it is. And this far, what we've done is that we have used the desktop session for which we needed this workspace application running. So here I have my application running on the machine where I'm running my code. Therefore, it's working. I don't have to put in my password or anything like this in order to get my code to run. However, what if I don't want to have my workspace application running? Maybe I don't want to have so many applications open. I just want to have my code running and authenticate itself to the LSEG services in a seamless way without any extra applications running. Well, you can do so with the platform session. And you can use the platform session in tandem with a configuration file. Again, you can find more about the configuration file and things like this, and even how to get started with your welcome email from LSEG if you were to go on the developer site. So here, developers.lseg.com site, you can go on the top right and search and write something like getting started, and it will show you more about all of this. But I'm going to be using the configuration file. There's other ways you can authenticate yourself with the platform session. And this is what my authentication process looks like. I have my configuration file here. So it says there, that's the address of where my configuration file is. It's a JSON file, and it's written like this. I've just put a picture for you there so you can see what it looks like. By all means, you can copy and paste this. You can use this in your own configuration file. And here, what we're interested in is the session. So in line 14, you've got your session that we're defining. Line 15, we're saying the default session. Here it says platform.rdp, but it could be desktop.workspace. I think that's what mine says, desktop.workspace. So it goes straight to a desktop session as opposed to a platform session. When I just do lsec.open, so if I do this here, it's going to go straight for a desktop session because that's what's in my default. Now here it says platform.rdp, so we'll go to platform session instead. And in there I have my specificity. So here I've specified the platform, and within the platform session I want to use the RDP, and that's just a name. You can rename these things. So here I've named my JL RDP, so I can have my name in there with my GL name, and I have my app key. Now, again, if you're interested in the app key, you can look in the developers portal and have a look at how to get that. My username, which is the same that I've used for Workspace, and my password, again, same that I've used for Workspace. And I can use all of these details inside my configuration file to authenticate myself. Note that I've done this on purpose so that now I can share my code, I can show you what I'm doing without sharing my password and my username and things like this. So it's quite useful indeed. All I have to do is I have to specify where my configuration file is with this open session function from the LD library, and that's config name argument. So it has to be in a string, and this is going to be the place where my configuration file is, and I'm going to specify the name of the session I'm going to be using. So mine is called platform.jlrdp, and that's where it's going to be written right here, platform, and instead of RDP, I've got JLRDP with all my details in there. Now that I have authenticated myself to the platform and to the services, I can then just run the exact same code that I had right above. I've given you a very quick example here with two companies, yet again, with a universe in a field. Okay, there isn't actually, and of course, I shouldn't forget, ld.close session. Close your session every time. You really have to do this in order to make sure that you don't have a rogue session open in the background. Something I didn't mention is that in order to open your platform session, you have to make sure your desktop application is closed. So here, my desktop application is obviously open. I don't want to close it right now because I'm working on it. But if you wanted to use a platform session, you'd have to close your Workspace desktop app in order to be able to open your platform session. This is done on purpose. It's so that your desktop app doesn't just shut down in the middle of something because someone else might be trying to log in with your details erroneously. Okay, this is quite a short function. There isn't much within the get data. You can see there's only quite a few parameters, but when we get through to the other functions that we have right there, you can see that it gets quite complicated quite quickly. The get data function, the one we've just gone through today, is very bare bones and goes really close to the data that are present in the databases. So here what we've done is that we've asked for data from the LSEG data platform that I've spoken about just there, and it's really given you kind of the closest you can get to the raw data that's right in there. Sometimes it doesn't work very well because if you ask for commodities data and then equities data at the same time, maybe they shouldn't have the same field names, so you're going to end up with NAs, not a number everywhere in your data sets, which may be perfectly fine with you, in which case go ahead and that's perfectly fine. But we're going to be going forward with other functions like get history, open pricing stream, and things like this, where we have more row fidelity and things that are more tidy and better for data analysis. It was great going through this, and I hope to see you again in further videos. So thanks for watching.